As we head into the final weekend of the college football regular season, everybody is talking about the undefeated teams and Heisman candidates. Currently, Michigan fits in both categories. They are currently undefeated, and they have a quarterback named JJ McCarthy, who people think is a legitimate Heisman contender. Other guys in the mix include Michael Penix Jr., Bo Nix, Jaden Daniels, and Marvin Harrison Jr. All four of those guys are elite talents, but out of the five I've talked about, one doesn't really belong. I know Michigan fans are probably going to hate me for saying this, but JJ McCarthy, in my opinion, is the most overrated player in college football. Is it his fault? I don't know. Honestly, there's no other way to describe him. In the month of November, McCarthy has not thrown or ran for a touchdown, but is somehow considered in the Heisman race. Besides a two-game stretch in mid-October against Indiana and Michigan State, in arguably his biggest two games of the year, he has not done anything. And in today's video, I want to examine JJ McCarthy. We're going to go through how he got to this point, talk about why everyone is so ridiculously high on him, and why he is honestly super overrated. The answer, I think, is two-part, but you'll have to watch the video to find out why. But before we get started, if you're a big college football fan, quickly be sure to subscribe to the channel, leave a like if you support today's video, and turn on post notifications so you never miss when I upload. Now let's get started and talk about the most overrated player in college football. So before all the Michigan fans run to the comment section and get upset, I am not trying to bash JJ McCarthy as a player, or I'm not saying that he's not a good player. I'm just saying, based on the NFL projections and the Heisman hype he's getting, his numbers and performances do not live up to that. That's all I'm really trying to say. But the thing is, McCarthy will get better. He has pretty much unlimited potential, and people have been seeing this for years now. Going back in time, McCarthy grew up in Chicago and actually was torn between two sports. He was both an elite hockey player and a football player. Eventually, he decided to choose football and passed on the opportunity to travel the globe playing ice hockey. Instead, he went all in on football, and it ended up working out for him. He got a trainer, hit a growth spurt, and eventually became one of the top quarterbacks in the Midwest, and coupling that with an insane work ethic, the stars were aligning for JJ. Honestly, when people say someone lives and breathes football, it's usually cliche, but for JJ, that truly held weight. Many said that in the class of 2021, there was not a harder worker than JJ McCarthy, and there was no one who was more dedicated than him. Eventually, his daily schedule in high school was leaked to the public, and it was so crammed with so much to do that a psychologist was actually concerned about it. He was worried that JJ was being overworked and not getting enough sleep, and this eventually got back to his parents and generated a response. His dad said, quote, No, he's cut differently. My wife and I shake our heads all the time. We're never going to tell him no, and we're just going to tell him when it's time to clean your room, it's time to clean your room. That's for sure. So yeah, JJ was an insanely hard worker, and this would translate onto the football field. In his 2 years at Nazareth Academy in Chicago, he passed for 6,268 yards with 73 touchdowns. He also led his team to 2 state title appearances, including 1 win. He was now considered a blue chip recruit and got offers from all around the country. At the time of his commitment, he held 33 offers, including schools such as Ohio State, LSU, Michigan State, Texas, Wisconsin, and Michigan. Eventually, he decided to wrap the recruiting process up and committed to Michigan in May of 2019. After that, he also made a move as he announced he would transfer from Nazareth Academy to attend IMG, the same place former Michigan quarterback Shea Patterson went. This meant that during his senior year, he'd be playing at some of the most talented prospects in the nation. Part of the reason he decided to transfer was because he didn't know if he'd actually be able to play in 2020 due to Illinois' concerns about everything going on in the world. He quickly became one of the top players in his class and one of the top gunslingers in the nation. He had all the natural talent and stats, but everyone just kept raving about his work ethic. His trainer said, quote, his work ethic is unbelievable. He's arguably the top quarterback in this class, but he has the ability to consistently keep learning. He's not one of those guys that ever feels like he's reached his peak, and he's constantly asking questions and trying to get better. One scout said that McCarthy was pretty much the perfect prospect. He had eye-popping arm talent, an extremely high football IQ, elite escapability skills, perfect ball placement, and a good work ethic. Obviously, he was also a great leader, and this is why 24/7 Sports was so high on him. According to them, he was a 5-star recruit, the number 5 quarterback, and the 25th best player in the class of 2021. Many felt he was actually underranked, and they were waiting for him to take over at Michigan, who was in desperate need of a truly elite QB. It always felt that it was inevitable that JJ McCarthy would take over pretty soon at Michigan. Unfortunately for him, his freshman year, he'd have to be the backup to Cade McNamara, and he really did buy into his role. He ended up finishing with 385 yards passing, with 4 passing touchdowns and 2 rushing scores. He really became one of the leaders off the bench and helped Michigan get to the college football playoff. They'd be matched up with number 3 Georgia in the Orange Bowl, and in that game, McCarthy would actually end up throwing for a touchdown. Many were waiting for him to take over in 2022, but at the beginning of the season, Harbaugh announced that both him and Cade McNamara would get an opportunity to start. Obviously, many thought that JJ would end up winning the job, and that is exactly what would happen. He'd have a near perfect performance against Hawaii, going 11 of 12 for 229 yards and 3 touchdowns. From there, he'd take over the starting duty, and notably had a pretty good year. He helped them beat Maryland, go on the road and beat Iowa, knock off number 10 Penn State, beat Illinois at home, and then most famously went off in the game against number 2 Ohio State. In that game, McCarthy had 4 touchdowns, including 3 through the air and 1 on the ground. He helped facilitate big play after big play, was a leader on the field, and led them to a ginormous win. This would get them to the Big Ten championship game, where he'd throw for 3 touchdowns and a win over Purdue. This would lock in Michigan getting back to the college football playoff, and last year against TCU, he was mixed. While he did have 343 yards and 3 total touchdowns, he also had 2 costly interceptions and had to play from behind against the Horned Frog. They ended up losing, and Michigan went home early for the second straight year. McCarthy finished with nearly 3,000 yards, 27 total touchdowns, and 5 picks. He was showing all that immense potential, was a great leader, and seemingly was going to put it all together in 2023. Going into this year, many had him slotted as a first-round pick, including myself. I think that McCarthy will be a better pro than college player, but right now, I'm honestly getting a little bit annoyed with the hype. As of a couple weeks ago, he was slotted as the 3rd best quarterback, and at one point was the frontrunner for the Heisman just a few weeks ago. While the hype has cooled down a little bit, McCarthy's 2023 season has honestly been very underwhelming to me. For the first 9 games of the season, Michigan didn't play anybody. Part of that wasn't their fault, and part of it was. You can't help that most of the teams in the Big Ten that they played were horrible, but you can help an absolutely atrocious non-con. Games against East Carolina, UNLV, and Bowling Green were absolutely worthless, and while McCarthy put up solid numbers in those games, it hasn't really translated when he's been in his bigger games. Yes, he had 3 or 4 touchdown performances against Indiana, Minnesota, Nebraska, and Michigan State, but once the clock hit November, he has honestly just not done anything. Maybe it's partially because of their offensive game plan, but McCarthy has not scored a touchdown. He's played in 3 games in the month of November, and those wins have come against Purdue, number 10 Penn State, and Maryland. Purdue is absolutely awful, so you probably would have expected him to have a good game against the Boilers. He did throw for 335 yards, but did not register a score. After that, they go on the road to play number 10 Penn State, and in what many thought was one of the biggest games of the 2023 college football season, Michigan dominated with their running backs and offensive line, but McCarthy really didn't do anything. He went 7 of 8 for 60 yards. I don't really care what excuse you make up, McCarthy didn't do anything in that game except hand the ball off. Whether that's because that was their game plan or they didn't trust him, that's a different argument. I can't really answer that, but for a guy who some believe is the 3rd best quarterback prospect and a potential Heisman candidate, having 60 yards against a top 10 team just isn't going to cut it in my eyes. This past weekend, though, he got a chance to redeem himself. They were to go on the road to play against Maryland, and while Maryland has fallen off, this is probably the 2nd toughest game they've played in 2023. It's really sad. In this game, they only ended up winning by a touchdown, and McCarthy didn't really have great numbers. He went 12 of 23 for 141 yards without a touchdown and an interception. This has been quite the development. In the month of November, McCarthy roughly has 600 yards with 1 interception and not a single touchdown. This is why I think he's the most overrated player in the country. Michigan is beating teams with ease, and he's not even doing anything. You could plug in Joe Milton, Cade McNamara, or even Dan Villari, and the results would be the exact same. Blake Corum and Donovan Edwards are much more valuable to Michigan this year, and for now, the McCarthy hype needs to slow down. He's disappeared in the 2 toughest games he's played this season, put up solid numbers against bad teams, and has only gotten hype because of how good the rest of his team and how good the Michigan Wolverines record is. Again, I don't mean any hate against him. I think he has tremendous potential and is a good player. He's just not at the level that everyone thinks he is. But this could all change in the next month of football. They'll play Ohio State at home this weekend, and if he puts up big numbers in that one and leads them to a 3rd straight win, then I may have to change my take. From there, he'll also have to play one of the best defenses in the country against Iowa, and if things go according to plan, could have 1 or 2 playoff games against legit competition. McCarthy will make or break his reputation in the next month, but for now, he's the most overrated player in college football. I know despite listening to the video, a lot of Michigan fans are still going to be upset at this, but please let me know down below why he has lived up to the hype, and please give me your argument for that. I definitely want to hear it. I'm hoping that he proves me wrong and lives up to all the potential he has. For now though, we'll just have to wait and see. But what do you guys think? Let me know your thoughts down below on JJ McCarthy. Let me know what player I should cover in my next video, and another topic I could cover on the channel. I also would appreciate a like if you enjoyed the video, and check out all my other videos on the end screen, including my video about the rise of Jaden Daniels from LSU. I hope to see you guys again soon, but until next time, peace.